Alright, so now we will have the last topic for our prelim examination. This will be lesson 2 of module 2, providing evidence of achievement of outcomes and standards. So, Benjamin Bloom and a committee of college colleagues in 1956 identified 3 domains of educational activities. This is the cognitive, referring to mental skills; affective, referring to growth in feelings or emotion; and psychomotor, referring to manual or physical skills. So as future educators, it is important for us to identify this particular 3 domains, wherein this will be your basis on what outcomes or learning outcomes or objectives you will be creating on your lesson plans. So these 3 domains are organized into categories or levels and arranged in hierarchical order. Form the simplest behavior to the most complex behavior. So to ensure that the learning outcomes are measurable, demonstrable, and verifiable, the outcomes should be stated as concrete and active verbs. So in Bloom's taxonomy, you will be able to see the stages or levels of each domains. In each domains, there are categories. So like for example, we have here cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and affective domain. Cognitive domain is it involves knowledge and the development of intellectual skills. So this includes the first level, recall or recognition of specific facts, procedural patterns, and concepts that serve in the development of intellectual abilities and skills. So as you can see, the very first level in cognitive domain will be recall. Then psychomotor domain, in the early 70s, E. Simpson, Dave, and A.S. Harrow recommended categories for the psychomotor domain, which included physical coordination, movement, and use of motor skills and body parts. So for cognitive, we have like 6 categories, while psychomotor only have 4 categories. And lastly, affective domain. The affective domain refers to the way in which we deal with the situation emotionally, such as feeling, appreciation, enthusiasm, motivation, values, and attitudes. So this particular domain serves 5 categories. So let us check each category. So first is for the cognitive domain. So in cognitive domain, we have here the categories and levels, outcomes, verbs that we need to use, especially in doing learning outcomes or creating or objectives. And then the learning outcomes should be this one. Like for example, the first one, or the remembering or the recall of previously learned information. So this is the basic level for cognitive domain. Usually, the verbs that we used in our objectives will be define, describe, identify, label, match, list, name, outline, recall, recognize, reproduce, select, or state. Now, the learning outcome should be like, for example, recite the multiplication tables, match the word with the parts of the picture of a sewing machine. Next is the understanding level. Now, when we say understanding level, there will be comprehension. So, comprehending the meaning, translation, and interpretation of instruction, state a problem in one's own word. So, this is this will be the second level or the highest level compared to remembering. Outcomes verbs used for this one will be distinguish, estimate, explain, give example, interpret, paraphrase, or summarize. Now, in learning outcomes, you can use like for example, explain in one's own words the stages in the life cycle of a butterfly. Distinguish the different geometric figures. So that are the examples. Next will be the third level, which is applying. Applying is using what was learned in the classroom into similar new situation. So this is the application part. So the outcomes verbs will be apply, change, compute, construct, demonstrate, discover, modify, prepare, produce, show, solve, or use. An example is use a mathematical formula to solve an algebra problem. prepare daily menus for 1 week for a family of 6. So that is the learning outcome. The fourth level will be analyzing. When we say analyzing, it is separating materials or concepts into component parts to understand the whole. So when we say analyzing, the verbs that we need to use for this one will be analyze, compare, contrast, diagram, differentiate, distinguish, illustrate, outline, select. And the example for this one for learning outcomes will be observe a classroom and list down the things to be improved, or differentiate a part of a tree. Next is the fifth level, which is evaluating. Evaluating is judging a value of an idea, object, or material. So the verbs that we will be using will be compare, conclude, criticize, defend, evaluate, relate, support, and justify. So the learning outcomes, like for example, is defend a research proposal, select the most effective solution, critique a classroom demonstration. The last level, or this is the highest level for cognitive domain, which is creating. It is building a structure, pattern, putting a parts together. So in this one, we usually use categorize, combine, compile, compose, devise, design, plan, portfolio, organize, revise, rearrange, generate, modify. Sometimes we also use construct. And then for learning outcomes, we usually have example, compile personal record and or documents into or write a syllabus into a portfolio, or write a syllabus for a school subject. So for the cognitive domain, the three or the 4, 5, and 6th level are what we called HOTS, or the higher order thinking skills level. Next, let us discuss the psychomotor domain. So for the psychomotor domain, we have here the same categories or levels, outcomes, verbs, and learning outcomes. Now for categories or levels, we have here observing, active mental attention to a physical activity. For the outcomes verbs, we usually use watch, detect, distinguish, differentiate, describe, relate, or select. An example will be detect nonverbal communication cues, or watch a more experienced person, or observe and read directions. So that is observing, or the very first level for psychomotor. Second one is imitating. Imitating is an attempt to copy a physical behavior. So for the outcomes verbs, we used begin, explain, move, display, proceed, react, show, state, and volunteer. So for learning outcomes example, show understanding and do sequence of steps with assistance. Recognize one's limitation. Next is the third level will be practicing. When we say practicing, this is performing a specific activity repeatedly, like you are practicing it. So outcome verbs will be practicing, bend, calibrate, construct, differentiate, dismantle, display, fasten, fix, grasp, grind, handle, measure, mix, operate, manipulate, or mend. Then the example for this one will be operate quickly and accurately, display competence while performing. Performance is moving towards becoming automatic and smooth. So the last level will be adopting. When we say adopting, it should be fine-tuning the skill and making minor adjustments to attain perfection. Outcomes verbs will be organize, relax, sharpen, sketch, write, rearrange, compose, create, design, and originate. Now for your learning outcomes, you can use perform automatically, construct a new sequence or scheme, apply skill in new situation, create a new routine, or develop a new program. So that is for the psychomotor domain. Now let us go forward to affective domain. In affective domain, the first level will be receiving. Receiving is being aware or sensitive to something and being willing to listen or pay attention. So outcomes verbs are point to, sit, choose, describe, follow, hold, identify, name, and reply. Learning outcomes is example, listen to others with respect. Try to remember profile and fact. So that was the example. Another steps or level is responding. When we say responding, it is showing commitment to respond in some measure to the idea or phenomenon. Verbs will be answer, assist, comply, conform, discuss, grade, help, perform, practice, read, recite, report, tell, and write. So learning outcomes will be participate in discussions. So participate in discussions, give expectations, know the rules and practice them, question concepts in order to understand them well. Next is the third level is valuing. Valuing is showing willingness to be perceived as valuing or favoring certain ideas. So outcomes verbs are complete, demonstrate, differentiate, explain, follow, invite, join, justify, propose, report, share, study, perform. Learning outcomes will be demonstrate belief in the concept or process or show ability to resolve. Organizing. Organizing is arranging values into priorities, creating a unique value system by comparing, relating, and synthesizing ideas or values. Example, the outcomes verbs will be arrange, combine, complete, adhere, alter, defend, explain, formulate, integrate, organize, relate, and synthesize. Examples: accept responsibility, recognize the need for balance between freedom and responsible behavior, explain how to plan to solve problem, prioritize time effectively for family, work and personal life problems, conflicts, and propose plan for improvement, inform management, supervisor on matters that needs attention. Last is the internalizing. Internalizing is this is the practicing value system that control one's behavior, exhibiting behavior that is consistent, pervasive, predictable, and characteristics of a person. So outcomes verbs will be act, display, influence, listen, discriminate, modify, perform, revise, solve, or verify. Learning outcomes will be show self-reliance when asking, cooperate in group activities, demonstrate objectivity in problem solving, revise judgment in light of new evidences, value people for what they are and not for how they look. So that was the end of the topic for lesson 2. So congratulations again, our prelim topics are already done.